Assalamu alaikum, merhaba, and moi everyone. God, I love that intro. This interview was on the classic TT Austin track day. Because this was a long interview, I decided to split this up into its own video. The reason I was able to do this interview was because of this man, Michael. Actually, he pointed me out in the direction and told me that if I wanted more content to film, I should definitely go and have a chat over there. And he pointed into a pit box. So all thanks to Michael. Without him, I was not able to put this bike on the podium it deserves. Unfortunately, though, it is my podium, so it will have to do with it. As always, enjoy, and I hope to see you at the end. By the way, if you haven't watched the video of the entire track day, go watch it. It's called The Valhalla of Classics. I highly recommend it. It's one of my best works so far, I think. All right, see ya. So who are you, first of all?
Okay, my name's Paul. I'm originally from Australia, but I've lived in Austria now for more than 10 years. I've always had GSXRs, especially the old second generation GSXR with the oil-cooled motors.
Yeah.
The first generation, obviously, and the second generation were very similar, and then the third generation from '93 went to water-cooled. But I've always had the passion for the second generation, first generation. So this bike here has taken me probably 8 years to build, because obviously the parts were sourced from all over the world. You know, I had parts from Mexico, from USA, and they took time to find, and they also weren't cheap. So
yeah.
Every year I would save up a little bit and buy a part, and it took so long to build that I couldn't afford to build it all in one go.
No.
And it took me 8 years to collect all the parts and slowly build up what you see here, you know. The basic concept of it was I wanted something to look like the Suzuka endurance race bikes from the 80s and 90s. And I have a friend in Japan called Benny that he's a graphic designer, and he basically collaborated with me to build and to design a bike from the original shape and make it look like it was a Suzuka bike, make it look like it was actually a replica or an actual race bike from back in the day. So that was the whole concept design of it. Once we got the design done, then I could start incorporating my ideas into the parts and to the way I wanted it to look. And one of the main things was I loved the Astrolite wheels, which are a brand made in the UK, which no longer exists, but back in the 80s were very popular. So I wanted that look with the modern parts, and but to keep the original style and shape of the bike. So I didn't want to change the look of it, I just wanted to change the appearance. Hence where it started. You know, bit by bit I collected parts, and then one day I found something else, and in my head I had a design plan from the start. This is the way I wanted it to look, and it just went from there, just snowballed, you know. It took a long time to get all the parts made and built. Some of them are custom, you can't buy the parts. Some of them are machined and designed by myself or by another friend of mine. So we machined the parts to fit the bike and to actually incorporate some of the new parts that we bought.
Yeah. So it's basically a custom bike then?
It's a custom bike made to look like an old bike, but with modern parts.
Yeah, I see.
So for example,
fairings?
The fairings are all original. So a person who knows this particular model will know that all the fairings are original.
Okay, I'm not really into, but
yeah,
it's just amazing to see actually.
Yeah, so everything you see on the bike here was designed and built to be ridden on the road.
I see.
So it still has headlights, it still has blinkers, it still has brake lights. It all works, it's all registered and roadworthy.
Yeah, I can see the license. I can see the license plate holder.
Yeah, everything on the bike is built to be ridden on the road. The only thing that's not street legal is the exhaust at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And that will be changed later on for a full titanium exhaust from a friend of mine in Japan who makes and handcrafts titanium exhaust for these particular models. But the bike you see here is street legal. So
it's really hard to
comprehend,
wrap my mind around it.
But the whole concept was to show people what can be done with a standard looking shaped bike with a few modern parts to make it look a little bit more race orientated, but incorporate the same parts. Like the forks, for example, are still a Suzuki part. They came off a 2001 GSXR 1000. They still incorporate the axial calipers.
Yeah.
The only thing I have changed is the calipers. They're AP Racing, which is a brand made in the UK, which obviously was for racing purposes. The front disc is also custom made, fabricated. I had a friend design and machine a disc rotor to carry that particular style, because that's the look I wanted. Again, with the back disc, it's a full floating disc, but it's on a separate floating carrier. So even though it looks normal, until you get a close look at it, it's actually custom made to be very similar to what the endurance championship bikes have on their bikes. Yeah, the rear calipers, obviously, again, race orientated, small to be lightweight and to sort of take less space. All the connections, all the dry brake lines, and the throttle, Yoshimura parts sourced from all over the world. Some of them are period correct, like the footrests are actually genuine Yoshimura items from 1990. Okay, they were a little bit difficult to find. The Yoshimura throttle is still available today. They still produce it, so you can still buy it. The top triple clamp is not available from Yoshimura anymore.
Sorry, the what?
The top triple clamp.
Yeah.
The fork clamp, that's not available anymore. So that's a genuine Yoshimura part. And if you're lucky enough to have one, it's great. But if you can't, you have to look for one, and it's difficult sometimes to find them. Tank obviously has been heavily modified to incorporate a twin filler, and also tubes to go through the tank into the carburetor. That's the only part that's not finished yet, is the ram air tubing from the windscreen into the tank. And it was basically because the technology wasn't around at the time, and it's only now that people are starting to 3D print and scan parts that in the future somebody will scan the front of the bike, program it on their computer, and actually 3D print ram air tubes that go into the tank that are custom fitted perfectly, and that's just to basically stop the messing around with fiberglass and molds and everything else, which it's time consuming and it's not very accurate either.
So eight years of working on this bike.
8 years of developing and incorporating new technology and parts. The ignition system is all electronic, the dash is electronic, the switches are all electronic. Everything on it is programmed via a computer on the bike, and which you can plug into a laptop.
Oh, really?
And adjust everything. Everything from RPM settings to rev limiter to ignition timing to launch control to pick control, limiter to quick shifter. So it has the modern technology of road bikes incorporated into a 35-year-old machine.
Crazy, man. So you race this, or is it just street?
No, this is simply for the road. This has never been on a racetrack. So it was built to be designed and look like it was a racetrack.
But it's just for the road.
But it is simply designed to be ridden on the road legally. So
do you get cops often come over and pull you over?
Well, they think it's a race bike, but it's not.
But do they actually pull you over?
No. I've had one person look at it and ask me, but I showed him the paperwork and that was fine. He just let me go and he said very nice and have a good day.
Nice.
But for example, the dry clutch is one of those parts you can't find, and it's very difficult to find them. They're not cheap, and with the help of a friend, I sourced one, and now I have quite a few of them at home, waiting to go on other bikes. So
is this your only project then, or is it?
No, I mean obviously the race bike is something else I've worked on as well over the last couple of years, but this is more for the track. So for me it's another bike I use to develop parts to use on the road bikes.
Yeah.
So I've designed and I've developed a few parts on this bike that I can use, but this one is strictly for the track only. This is what I enjoy riding fast. And it's based on the same model. It's the same vintage 1989, 1990 model. Mm-hmm. It's just incorporated a lot of more race parts onto it that are more practical for me on the track rather than the road.
Yeah, okay. I know there's not a price tag on it because the sentimental value is way too much.
But value is too much. But if I was to sell it, if I was to put a figure on it, with the amount of hours and time I've spent on it, I did a quick calculation a few years ago, and I think it was probably I think it was upwards of 40,000 euros.
Really?
Yeah. And that's obviously, you got to remember, that's including a lot of labour and a lot of
Yeah,
time.
of course.
And a lot of transport. I mean, the bike's been all over Europe. The bike's been to England for the paint job. It's been to Germany for the mechanical work. It's been
everywhere.
all over the place, and that needs transport. You
You
need to take the time to spend the money on fuel and ferry tickets and travelling to and from 1,000 kilometres or 1,500 kilometres, 1,000 miles to drive somewhere to get something made or get something painted because you want a specific person to do it or a specific look because the person has the knowledge or the machinery to make it.
Expertise to do it.
So it's not just a matter of just ringing somebody up and say, oh yeah, can you build me this? Can you make me this? It says, yeah, but where's the bike? How do I design it? Well, this is what it looks like, can you just make something? It doesn't work that way. Sometimes when you're planning and designing something, you need to have the bike there.
Yeah.
When the bike was painted, it took them 6 months because of their workload, obviously. But they had the bike for over a year, and they had to make sure the fairings lined up, and then they had to make sure the stickers were right. And the stickers would have been placed on and off maybe 2 or 3 times because I didn't like the way they sat. So the lettering and the writing overlapped some of the fairings that were removable, and from a certain point they didn't line up. So he did it.
You had to all over again.
And the logo was too small, too big, and it didn't fit in proportion. So little details like that, I'm very OCD about.
But
for me,
what I noticed is the 7-Up Japanese.
Well, 7-Up was the drink, the lemonade drink. They have. So I put a bit of a twist on it because there have been sponsored race teams with 7-Up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sponsorship on them. So I used the logo and then I put factory racing underneath it in Japanese kanji lettering. So that basically on the side it says 7-Up Factory Racing. And it was just a concept to make it look more Japanese and more Suzuka 8-hour endurance type of style, Not for any other reason except, it was a mock-up of
it's a nice touch.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch.
And I've got other ideas for the next builds as well, which are going to incorporate similar sort of things, make them look like it's...
So this is standing in your living room probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, when it's not, I mean, look, I even got a custom-made garage mat for it, so when it's not, not being ridden, and it doesn't get ridden
often,
very often at all. You know what I mean? Once a year.
It's
not. I've got other bikes I ride that.
So basically, you have to put a glass over it.
No, I don't. I don't go to that level. But I mean, I enjoy just starting it up and just riding it. On a sunny day and when there's no rain or anything. And this is the first time it's actually been out in the public.
Oh, really?
This is the first time that people have seen it. And the first time it's really been advertised or been displayed on the internet because I've only showed short clips of it, so I haven't really taken detailed photos for people to look at.
I'll do my best.
So this is the first time people have actually walked in and had a look and taken photos of it.
How does it feel to talk about such a project?
I mean, it's
I mean, you have rights to brag, but
look, I just enjoy the build process as much as I enjoy the riding of it. The problem is sometimes things take so long because you just don't have the money, with everyday life, mortgage and everything else. You can't afford to spend $1,000 on wheels or, the dry clutch is like 4,000 euros.
Yeah.
The paint job is 3,000 euros. You can't just pay for that overnight.
Yeah.
That takes months of working and saving to be able to afford one part of the project. People think it's a what they call a checkbook build.
It's not.
If you've got the money, I'd like to have some because for me it's taken so long to build it because it's so expensive. I couldn't afford everything.
But you have something that is special, man. Not
exactly
like it's
right.
probably unique in this world. No, it's one out of one.
Yeah. And I have started, a few people have asked me to build them a few bikes and, incorporate the same sort of mentality of the design, features and dry clutches and things like that. It's something, I'm keen to do for a few people, but it takes a lot of time and money, I can't afford to do everything on my own, so the initial investment obviously, needs to be catered for because I need to buy parts and I
Yeah,
have
of
to
course.
start the process.
Yeah.
And then it's whether or not people have the time and patience for it. It's not just something that can be, oh yeah, I'll have your bike ready next month.
Yeah, no.
It's not something that I can just build overnight. You know, it's something that if you want something built, yeah, sure, I can build it for you.
We need to fund me. Yeah.
Next year maybe,
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
in 2 years I'll have it ready for you.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what you want on it. Because if you want these type of forks, these type of wheels, this type of, I've got to make sure they incorporate and fit into the bike. It's not just a matter of buying something because you have to remember it's 35 years old. It's not something that can be just bolted together with parts that you buy new for new bikes these days.
You have to think about every step probably.
It's the same with this bike. This bike has €2,500 race wheels. But
Really?
they're not made for this bike. You know, so I've had to adapt brackets for the calipers and spacers to make it fit a 35-year-old machine and still work, you know, safely.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen overnight. You know?
No.
There's parts made, a machine for.
So what's your background? Do you have a mechanical background, or is this just?
I don't have I'm not a qualified mechanic. I'm just a very intuitive type of person that has a lot of design creation and a lot of mechanical knowledge.
Oh, okay.
You know, so
All right.
for the serious stuff, I have my friends do the hard labor. I assemble it and I design it and I source the parts and research the parts for it. But when it comes to performance tuning and things like that, that's a different department. That's a different department.
All right, man. It's a blast to talk with you, dude.
Thank you very much.
No, thank
Hope
you.
you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did.
Enjoy the day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for making it to the end. If you like this type of content, let me know in the comments. I'll try to search for those special moments with the owners of the bikes. Make sure to like and subscribe. You know the drill. It really helps me out to keep me motivated and go out of my way to make this type of videos. Link of this legend's channel is in the bio down below.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, once you get used to it, it's great.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of mental strength, you know. So